celebrations in Australia, the United States, and war-ravaged Asia and Europe. The Second World War was over. Japan's formal surrender took place on the 2nd of September, when their delegation signed the documents of surrender aboard USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, marking the official end of the Second World War. Today, we pay our respects to the almost 40,000 Australian men and women who died as a result of their service during the Second World War and who are commemorated here on the Roll of Honour. We also remember the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, and Air Commodore Peter McDermott, retired, Air Force Association National Vice President. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching a broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and by students representing Chifley College Senior Campus, Mount Druitt, New South Wales, and St Thomas More Catholic Primary School, Campbelltown, New South Wales. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, present!
Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could remember loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private John Frederick Skinner. John Skinner was born in Tenterfield, New South Wales on the 4th of July 1914, the son of Frederick John and Isabella Skinner. He attended Nonnington School, a small school built on the family property of Nonnington by his father, and went on to work as a bush labourer, probably on the family property. On the 19th of July 1941, John Skinner and his younger brother Edward enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force at Paddington in Sydney. The brothers joining a training battalion and in September were transferred to the Australian Army Medical Corps. After further training on the 10th of January 1942, John and Edward Skinner embarked from Sydney bound for overseas service. Arriving in Singapore a little over a fortnight later, the brothers were eventually taken on strength of the 2nd 10th Field Ambulance. Most of the 2nd 10th Field Ambulance served in Malaya, supporting the 8th Division in its fighting withdrawal down the Malay Peninsula and into Singapore. The Japanese attack on Singapore began at 10:30 p.m. on the 8th of February, when 2 Japanese divisions crossed the Johor Strait from the mainland to the island of Singapore. The defenders inflicted heavy casualties, but were outnumbered and fighting while in retreat. By the 13th of February, the battle for Singapore Island was all but over, and British forces surrendered 2 days later. Most of the Australians captured in Singapore were moved into Changi, where they were occupied Selarang Barracks. For many, this was just a transit stop, as working parties were soon dispatched to other camps in Singapore and Malaya. John and Edward Skinner were among the almost 1,500 prisoners who joined B-Force. The group was transported from Changi on the 7th of July 1942 on board the tramp steamer Ubimaru, arriving in Sandakan Harbour almost a fortnight later. In Sandakan, the men worked to construct an airfield and prisoner of war camps. Allied air raids on Sandakan began in October 1944. The airfield was bombed and strafed, and about 60 Japanese aircraft on the ground were destroyed. On Christmas Day 1944, B-24 Liberators were finally put the airfield out of commission. From the beginning, conditions had been harsh. Men were confined to a cage for periods from a few days to many weeks for minor infringements and subjected to repeated brutal bashings and starvation. Rations rapidly dwindled in 1944 and general health deteriorated. Minimal food and brutal treatment at the hands of the Taiwanese guards and Japanese soldiers exacerbated the impact of tropical diseases. The death rate climbed. On the 28th of January 1945, the first forced march began, starting in Sandakan and ending near the village of Rano, some 260 kilometres to the west. 470 prisoners were selected who were thought fit enough to carry baggage and supplies for the Japanese battalions relocating to the western coast. They were all malnourished and suffering serious illnesses and had meagre rations for the trip. Those who collapsed from exhaustion or sickness were killed or left to die. The next group of 536 prisoners left in late May, arriving in Rano a month later. On the 9th of June, another 75 men were sent. They were so weak that none survived beyond 50 kilometres, as each collapsed from exhaustion. He was shot by a Japanese guard. Those left at Sandakan who could not walk were killed or died of starvation and sickness. By the end of July, there were 38 prisoners left in Rano. 2 days after the Japanese surrendered on the 15th of August 1945, aircraft dropped leaflets with the news into the jungle. John Skinner was reported as have died of illness that day. He was 31 years old. His brother Edward had died a few months earlier on the 16th of June, suffering from dysentery and malnutrition in the Borneo jungle while attempting to escape. Edward was 27 years old. The 15 prisoners who survived the infamous Sandakan death marches were shot by Japanese guards on the 27th of August 1945. While the war had ended on the 15th of August, Allied forces had not yet arrived to liberate the prisoners in Ranor. Today, Edward and John Skinner's remains lie buried in Labuan War Cemetery. John Skinner lies beneath the words chosen by his grieving family. Dearly loved and sadly missed by his family. Rest in peace. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private John Frederick Skinner, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present, arms. Catapult party, shoulder, arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party, inward, turn. Catapult party, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Redevelopment Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.